All right, we're in the home stretch now. We are in the second part of our 5th unit in the Introduction to SAS class, and in this part we will cover logistic regression and some non-parametric statistics. For the logistic regression, remember that the dependent variable is a 0-1 variable. It's dichotomous. And this is how logistic regression is different from OLS regression. In other words, the regressions that we did before used a continuous dependent variable. For this, we're going to use a 0-1 variable. Now, we don't actually have one of those in our data set, so we need to create it. And we are going to create that variable based on the variable right, which is in our data set. And we will suppose that people might be in an honors composition class if they earned high writing scores. And we'll define a high writing score as 60 or above. So when the variable right is 60 or greater, the variable on comp here, which is what we're calling honors composition, will be 1. Otherwise, it will be 0. All right, so that's what we're going to do. And I want to stress that we're doing this creation of this variable just for the purposes of this example. We're not recommending that people go out and create dichotomous variables from continuous variables as a standard method of data analysis. Okay, so just remember this is only for this example. We'll come down here to SAS and bring it back up. So here in this data step, we're going to create our onComp variable, and we'll use the code as shown here. And what this tells SAS is that when this expression is true, this variable will be 1. Otherwise, it will be 0. Okay, so there's that. Let's look at our proc logistic. This does the logistic regression for us. We have our data option here telling us which data sets to be used. And then we have the descending option, which you might see abbreviated to DESC. And what this option does is tells SAS to model the ones instead of the zeros. Okay, if you forget this option, you might get some very interesting results, and they'll probably be pretty much exactly the opposite of what you're expecting. So always remember to use the descending option, and you will be just fine. We have here the model statement. Here is our dependent variable onComp, and then we have a categorical variable female. This is the 0-1 variable, and then we have the continuous variable read. I'm going to highlight all of this, and I'll come over here and click on my running person. And there we go. Let's page up once, or maybe twice here, and see the beginning of our output. So this here tells us the total frequency of the two values of our dependent variable. This is the result of the descending option, and this is exactly what we want to see. I'm going to page down here, and so this here tells us some information about the overall model. And as with the regular OLS regression, these numbers are meaningful only in comparison to other such numbers when you're comparing models. So in and of themselves, this 170.887 doesn't mean anything. Okay, let's page down again, and this gets us to the part of the output we're probably most interested in. So here are our estimates, and here we have our p-values here. So it looks like both female and read are statistically significant. And remember here that these estimates are log odds, they're logits, and they are not in the same scale that the original variables were in. Okay, so you need to be very careful when interpreting these numbers here. And SAS also gives us the odds ratios that are associated with these estimates and the confidence intervals for that. So we have all that. Let's come back to our program now. And it looks like we have one more logistic regression to run. Looks like we have some more variables in this one, some more predictors. So we have female, we've added school type, and then math and science. So let's go ahead and run this and see what we get. I'm going to highlight it and click on the running person. There we go. And so this here is just another example. We get our estimates here. Here's the Wald chi-squared and the probabilities associated. And it looks like the variable female is statistically significant. School type is not. Looks like read is, math is, and science doesn't make it. So that is logistic regression in SAS, or at least just a few examples of it. Alrighty, now let's go on and look at some of the non-parametric tests, okay? We're going to start with the sign test, and this is the non-parametric analog of the single sample t-test. So to do this, we will use proc univariate as shown here, and this mu0 equals 50 is the value against which we're going to test the mean of right. Okay, so you can see that this is very similar to the very first t-test that we ran earlier. And remember that this is mu0. This is not the capital letter O on your keyboard. This is actually the number 0. Okay, so let's highlight all of this, and we will click up here on our running person. There we go. We need to page up some to get to the beginning of our output. I think this is the beginning of it here. So we're given some descriptive statistics here, and then we're looking down here in these tests of location, and we will come down here, and we are looking for here this sign test, which we see is statistically significant. All right, now let's go on to the sign rank test, and this is the non-parametric analog of the paired t-test. Now, in order to obtain this test, we first have to use a data step to compute the difference between the variables that we're going to be using. Okay, so let's come back down here to our program editor. And here's the data step. I'm going to scroll down some so you can see some more of what we're going to be doing. There we go. So we are creating a temporary data set called diff. It's based on our HS1 data set, and we're creating a new variable which is also called diff, and it's going to be the difference between read and write. Then we're going to use proc univariate on this data set here with this variable here diff. Okay, let's just highlight all of this, and we'll come up here and click on our running person. And again, we need to page up through some of this, and again we're looking here at our tests of location, and this time we're looking down here at this bottom one, the signed rank test. Okay, and this one is statistically non-significant. Alright, so that's that test. Let's go on now and look at the rank sum test, and this is the non-parametric analog of the independent two-sample t-test. So we'll come back down here to our program, and we're going to use proc npar one way. This is short for non-parametrics one way. So we will use female as our class variable. We'll use right as our dependent variable. And so we'll set this up and highlight it. We'll come up here and click on our running person. And as with proc univariate, proc npar one way gives lots and lots of output. So I'm going to page up several times to get us up towards the top of this output. So this is actually the beginning of it. We get some descriptive statistics here about our class variable, telling us how many in each group. So that's interesting. We will page down now, and we are looking for the rank sum, and that is shown right here, and so we have a statistically significant effect shown right here. Okay, so there's that one. And finally, last but not least, we're going to try the KoskalWallis Test, which is the nonparametric analog of the one-way ANOVA. So we'll come down here to our program again, and again, proc npar one-way, specify the data set we want to use. This time we're going to use SAS as our class variable, right as our dependent variable, and so we will highlight this and click on our running person. Lots of output. We're going to page up some, keep paging, and hopefully get to the beginning of this. Okay, so here's the beginning of it, the output. We see the breakdown by SES, how many individuals in each one, and the mean of right for each one. I'm going to page down one more time, and here we go. So here's our KoskalWallis test, and we see that this is statistically significant. All right, this concludes the data analysis unit for the SAS class. I'd like to take a few moments now before we finish up and show you some of the resources that are available to you on our website to help you continue learning SAS. So I'm going to come down here and click on my web browser. Oops, maybe I will. There we go. All right, I'm going to hit on my back button a couple of times, and there we go. So here at www.ats.ucla.edu/stat/SAS, we have our SAS main page, and these links will help you get some information on learning SAS. So if we click back here on classes and seminars, you can see this here, Introduction to SAS. These are the class notes that we just went over. And these other links here are to seminars that we have offered in the past. And so you can look here at the notes. These are the actual handouts that we gave when we gave the seminars. And so you can look through these. They typically have both the code and the output, and usually a fair amount of explanation of what's going on. So these can be very useful if you're interested in any of these topics. Let's go back another one. If you're more at an introductory level with SAS or an intermediate level, these learning modules here can be very, very useful. There are fundamentals of learning SAS, and then reading in raw data. Scroll down some. There's a bunch of information on basic data management, and then some classic data management problems. All sorts of ways of reshaping data here, working across variables, merging data files, all sorts of stuff like that. So this can also be very useful for you. Let's go back again. We have tons and tons of frequently asked questions, so you can find out a great deal here. We also have textbook examples, and what we have done is taken common textbooks and worked out the examples that you see in the text in various statistical packages, and there are quite a few done here in SAS. So you can look at these to see how to do various analyses. We also have a web book in SAS that we wrote explaining how to do regression analysis in SAS. And when you are ready for it, there are library pages and code fragments. The library pages tend to be much more in-depth on very specific topics, and code fragments are just that. They're just fragments of code that we found to be useful. So this concludes our Introduction to SAS class, and please feel free to use our web resources to help you continue learning SAS. Thank you.